Now, today we turn to West Africa, Ghana to be specific, a nation celebrating for stability and democracy. But this week, Ghana made global headlines for a very different reason. Now, Parliament has passed a sweeping anti-LGBTQI plus bill, one of the harshest on the African continent, which is increasing prison sentences for identifying as LGBTQI plus, criminalizing support, funding, and advocacy, and encouraging ordinary citizens to report each other to authorities. And human rights groups are sounding the alarm. Now, the United Nations is warning of widespread violence and discrimination. And the activists in Ghana say that the bill will push people into hiding or out of the country. Now, today we unpack what this bill really means, why it's happening now, and how it impacts not only Ghana, but the whole continent. Let's check this video out.
With regards to the Family Values Bill, you were all aware of what happened the last time during the past administration. There was a legal tussle, and somebody filed an injunction against Parliament to injunct the Speaker from forwarding the bill to the President for assent. And so the situation is that the bill was never submitted to the President for assent. So it was not submitted, and the President did not assent. And by the Constitution, any bill that is not assented to by the President before the expiration of the life of Parliament expires. And so it means that the bill has to be relayed in the House. The Speaker has given notice that he will allow it to be relayed. But if you want the position of my government, marriage is between man and woman. A person's gender is determined at birth, and then also that the family is the foundation of our nation. That is our position. And so there are no questions or equivocations about what we believe. I believe that we are completely aligned with the Christian Council in terms of your belief. And so we agree with the Speaker to relay the bill and let Parliament, debate it. And if there are any amendments or whatever that have to be done. If the Parliament of the people of Ghana endorse the bill and vote on it and pass it, and it comes to me as president, I will sign it.
Now, Ghana's parliament passed the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill, which threatens up to 3 years in prison for identifying as LGBTQI+, up to 5 years for forming or funding organizations, and up to 10 years for LGBTQI+ advocacy involving minors. Now, mandatory reporting is that the citizens are encouraged to report suspected LGBTQI+ people to police, and attempts to soften the bill, replacing jail time with community service and counseling, was shut down by heckling in the parliament. Now, this bill comes in a country where gay sex was already criminalized with up to 3 years in prison. Now, the criminal net has widened, and the bill supporters say that it's about protecting Ghanaian family values, and Parliament insists that it reflects the will of the majority, including religious bodies and traditional authority. Now, this all escalated in 2021 when Ghana's first LGBTQ plus community center opened in Accra. Now, within weeks, the center was shut down. Religious organization protesters, the public outrage exploded, police raided meeting spaces, and the Christian Council of Ghana declared LGBTQI plus identity as alien to Ghanaian culture. Now, today I want you to hold on to the word alien because we will get back to it. Now, the reaction has been swift and global. Amnesty International warns the bill possesses a significant threat to fundamental rights. The UNAIDS Executive Director, Winnie, says that it will incite fear and violence, and it will block access to life-saving HIV services and set Ghana back on development. However, the human rights groups fear that this will be witch hunts, there will be forced outings, there will be vulnerable communities going underground, and that the health crisis worsening can be due to fear of reporting. Now, I speak as someone who understands where our laws come from, right? Where our culture comes from and how easily people become targets. But let's start with the arguments that we keep hearing, that the LGBTQ identities are un-African, right? And here's the truth, a truth many are afraid to say, that homophobia is what's un-African. Colonialism brought these laws. Europe wrote these criminal codes. Missionaries spread the doctrines used to shame and police African bodies. I mean, before colonialization, many African society had space, and sometimes quietly and sometimes openly. It was colonial governments that criminalized them. So when people say this bill protects African culture, I need us to ask, whose culture, whose values, whose laws? Because these laws are not from Ghana, they're not from South Africa, they're not from Nigeria, they're not from Kenya, they're from Britain. And colonial laws did not simply imprison people, they rewired what we call tradition. Some people say, well, Ghana is a democracy, right? And the people want this. But democracy without human rights becomes tyranny of majority. And once the state decides one group deserves fewer rights, then history shows us that it never stops there. That there are reasons this bill passed now, and they're deeper than morality. Ghana is facing economic struggles right now. It's facing high unemployment and debt, right? And rising religious conservatism, right? And pressure from political parties trying to look strong. And global culture wars exported from the West. Just like we see white conservatives in the United States stirring panic about transgender people, some African politicians have realized that moral panic is a political tool. It distracts the public, it wins votes, it shifts blame. It is easier to condemn vulnerable minority than to fix an economy. Whether we admit it or not, Africa is at a crossroads here. And two paths are emerging. One path is a continent where human rights apply to everyone, regardless of identity. And the second path is a continent where fear, policing, and punishment define morality and law. And today, Ghana stands on path two. And as Africans, we cannot pretend that this does not affect us all. Because today is LGBTQI plus people. Tomorrow, it could be the activists, it could be opposition parties, it could be religious minorities. I mean, remember apartheid? It started with laws about identity and moral order. Then it expanded into a full-blown system of violence. We must be careful, family, because Africa cannot build liberation on the oppression of others. We cannot fight colonialism on one hand while enforcing colonial laws on the other. We cannot call ourselves custodians of Ubuntu while pushing people into prisons for who they are. The world is watching Ghana, and so is Africa, and so are the youth who will inherit this continent. And the president of Ghana hasn't signed the bill yet, but he says that he will follow the will of the people. But leadership isn't just following, leadership is protecting, and human rights for all Africans must never depend on public opinion. Now, that's just my thoughts. Let's continue the conversation in the comment section. I want to hear what your thoughts are on this. My name is Naledi Mfoloe, reporting for ADNC. Please don't forget to like this video, and we'll see you on the next one.